Thank you, Stan. So Jono and Helen, when y'all were speaking the other day, and y'all were talking about figure out what fills you up and what drains you, so Barb writes, Walt, what fills you up? Speaking and traveling. What drains me?
Speaking and traveling.
So you had a kindred spirit. But we have loved being with you guys. Thank you for giving us this privilege. Last night was a real special experience for us. In fact, it was so special. Kenny and Esther here, are they sleeping in? Well, there's Kenny. So Kenny, last night, Barb and I are going up to our room, and Barb says, you know, just to see Kenny and those 8 residents from Smith and Wesson was it was just wonderful.
You're in trouble.
So, couple real quick advertisements at drwalt.com. We just want you to know about the daily devotional, Morning Glory, Evening Grace. You can sign up for it. Just click at drwalt.com on the devotional, and you can sign up for email, Twitter, or Facebook. And twice a day, a devotional, not the word of men or women. It's just the Word of God. And if you're interested in it, you can click on it and it'll come up. At the book table, we've got a book for parents, grandparents who have kids or grandkids who are pre-puberty or heading through puberty, and would love to sign those for you if you want to buy that for kids. And then 3 books about our first 4 years in private practice in a little town called Kanas City, a town of 900 people and with 38 Baptist churches. And on Friday nights, the home stadium had 4,500 people at football games. And it's been called James Harriet-like. So I'm really on it. But we've got copies of those if you want. If you like medical mysteries, my first 2 novels, Influenza Bomb and The Gabon Virus, is about an airborne Ebola virus. And then if you're a historical fiction nut, a couple books about the Smoky Mountain, the Great Smoky Mountain Wilderness, before the wilderness existed back in the 1920s. But what we're here to talk about today, we have been happily married 22 years.
Really?
We've been married 40.
That's true.
But one of those years that didn't rank in the 22 was the year that we wrote Barb's first and last book.
Yes. Yes. His brain, her brain. It was the worst year of my life. And we really found out how different we were in work ethic, in deadlines, in language. And there were a lot of nights where I cried. And we did laugh a lot, but it was usually at my expense. And so the publisher asked, what do you think should be the subtitle to this book? And without blinking an eye, I said, his brain, her brain. Does he really have one? And they said, no, that's not going to work too well in this market we're aiming for. And I went, okay, fine. His brain, her brain, happy life, happy wife, happy life. That one didn't fly either. So we ended up with his brain, her brain, how divinely designed differences can strengthen your marriage. That was the market we were going after. But really and truly, it strengthens relationships across the board when you understand the differences in men and women. If women were in charge of the world, this is what the world would look like. Next. Not too many choices here. Parking would be easier. And every woman would have a hammer screwdriver set that looked like this. And then a few years ago, Walt and I remodeled our bathroom.
Yeah, Walt and I remodeled our bathroom.
Yeah, and I gave it a lot of thought as to what I needed in the bathroom. You know, because he never changes the roll. And then I thought there is one last element that I have forgotten.
If men were in charge of the world, it would be a little different. We tend to trim our hedges differently than you do. We love making breakfast for the kids. We just don't do it your way. If the gasket grill breaks, not a problem for us. We can get the steaks done probably differently than you would, and the hot dogs done differently than we would. When we were up at Shelley and Stan's visiting, we learned that Stan even hunts differently than Shelley does. He said that's a root beer there. And we do Sunday school fellowships differently than you do. We just, our hypothesis, though, is that these differences aren't the result of time and chance. They're not the result of evolution. They're the result of divinely designed differences. But one of our reasons for going through this is not to give you techniques on controlling each other.
Or changing your spouse with the power and the ability to just mute her and go down here. It's not about giving me candy or eye candy, money or whatever, or touching me or telling me you love me and, things about the heart. It's not about controlling your man.
Or controlling your woman, pressing a button to have her tolerate more, accept more, or decrease her standards, or increase her cleaning, or sexual desire, or decrease her spending, or bring you more food or drink, or let you be, or let you out. It's not about control, but it's about learning to live with each other in your divinely designed differences. Our belief is that if you understand these differences, it will strengthen relationships with your patients, with your staff, with your spouses, with your kids, with your friends. If you do not understand these differences that attract you together can lead to distraction, disaster, disorder, and divorce. Boy, are we different. So Wiley did a series of cartoons on why we'll never understand each other.
What she heard was this.
You can tell she's not in very good shape, right? So here we go.
You don't expect me to take care of the kids, clean the house, and make dinner, do you?
And all he said, very lovingly, was, "Feeling any better, honey?" All what he heard. "I'm going to make you wish that you were dead for the rest of the week."
But what she really said was, "Tell me the truth, honey. Do I look fat in this?"
The academic research over the last 20 years, since the development of functional MRI, functional PET, and functional CT scans, is just dramatic. And the researchers now are beginning to publish data. In fact, one researcher at Cambridge, Simon Baron-Cohen, neuropsychologist there, when they first started seeing on the functional exams the differences between men and women, he did not publish his data until he had tenure. Because he was convinced that what would happen to him is what happened to Larry Summers, the then president of Harvard, when Lawrence Summers suggested at a small faculty meeting that there were differences between boys and girls, men and women, and the way they learned. And as at the leading academic institution in the world, Harvard should recognize those differences and look into them. The faculty senate was so incensed that he would even suggest there was any differences between men and women that he was fired for it. But now they're beginning to publish, but they all take an evolutionary angle. And we kind of like taking a biblical angle. One is Anne Moore, who's a geneticist at Oxford, and she writes this: men are different from women. They're equal only in their common membership in the same species, humankind. To maintain that they're the same in aptitude, skill, or behavior, now she's British, so behavior, is to build a society based on a biological and scientific lie. Rand Benzedine is a neuropsychiatrist at University of San Francisco, and she wrote in her book, The Female Brain, she now has a companion book, The Male Brain, there is no unisex brain. Girls are born already wired as girls, and boys arrive already wired as boys. Their brains are different by the time they're born, and their brains are what drive their impulses, values, and their very reality. Infants are not born as blank slates on whom we can scrawl instructions for sexually appropriate behavior, Moore writes. They are born with male or female minds on their own. They have quite literally made up their minds in the womb, safe from the legions of social engineers who impatiently await them. For the years that I was serving as vice president and focused on the family, I was often involved in public policy debate. And one of the ladies that I debated from time to time is a professor at Berkeley. And among the more activist feminists, she is one of the more honest. I really always enjoyed debating her because there's more discussion of worldviews. But anyway, a number of years ago, she decided as a single woman that she wanted to adopt a child. She adopted a little boy. And she decided she was going to raise that little boy in a violent-free, screen-free, meat-free, vegan, peaceful home. And she did. And she tells me the story of when he was about just shy of 24 months old, she had fed him a peanut butter sandwich made with, crushed organic peanuts, and he took that sandwich and he chewed it into the shape of a gun and shot her several times. So she told me, she said, of all the people I know who believe that boys and girls are born the same, they all share one characteristic. They are childless. And researchers are beginning to recognize, in fact, these differences are good. Ruben and Raquel Gur are a husband-wife neuropsychology team at Penn, and Ruben writes, most of these differences are complementary. They increase the chances of males and females joining together. It helps the whole species. In other words, they take the evolutionary viewpoint. We take a little bit different one.
And we know this from Scripture. Psalm 139, 13, 16, as King David penned, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place. When I was woven together in the depths of the earth, your eyes saw my unformed body."
Now, most of us are old enough to remember our anatomy classes and gross anatomy, and when we did the brain dissections and we looked at male and female brains, they looked the same. Anatomically, they look the same. Upon dissection, they look the same. But when we look at the function, using functional scanning, boy, they are literally as different as night and day. And so what we tried to do in conjunction with our daughter-in-law, who's a neurobiologist, a PhD in neurobiology, was put together, at least she and Barb put together some schematics to try to illustrate some of these differences. So when they drew his brain, they of course showed the largest hemisphere, the 24/7 sex hemisphere, followed by the risk-taking area. The job and career lobe is pretty big. He's sort of got the sports center back there, and the tools, toys, remote, and control gyrus. And in the back, this is very small in my brain, is the gawking and oogling lobe. And I have a very small lame excuses center.
Really? This is more like it.
My listening particle is pretty much.
I'm pretty sure it's smaller than that.
It's pretty big.
And, this one ought to be a little bit bigger here. Yeah, and this one, I did try to take care of this by bolting down the toilet seat.
I usually hit the bathroom.
This one is almost non-existent, but thanks to Siri, he is doing a little bit better in that department. And, this one's tough. This one's even worse.
Her brain's a little different.
Yes, we have the family and friends hemisphere and all things chocolate, the conversation and listening lobe, shopping center,
sports center.
Yeah, need for commitment, the intuition lobe. Of course we can manufacture tears when we need to. We do have a few minor faults, I would say.
Yeah, the shoe person outfit coordination center is quite large, but not the sense of direction neuron, nor the map reading cell, nor the risk-taking micron, nor the initiating sex neuron.
It's a little bigger than that.
Not much. So, it just got smaller. So, now, this research is very generous, full of generalities. 100% of what we're talking about is not going to apply to any person. 100% is not going to apply to girls. It's not going to apply to boys or men and women. But in general, these differences hold. But even more importantly is the people that you're attracted to, and particularly your spouses, are different. And understanding those differences can make a difference. Where do they come from? Well, just 3 quick areas we'll go through. There's many more, but genetics can make a huge difference. Not just the XY chromosome, but they've now identified in the human genome at least 28 genes that originate sexual differences apart from the XY genes. But the fun one for me is the testosterone and estrogen washes. These occur about 6 weeks into gestation, and they have dramatic effects. One of the most dramatic is on the corpus callosum. It's the largest structure connecting the right and left sides of the brain. Now, those are the anterior commissure and those are the posterior commissure. But the corpus callosum is really a big one. On average, 300 million fibers, lightning fast, speed of light, monster cables that connect the right and left brain. But that gush of testosterone actually dissolves the corpus callosum. And it can reduce it by size by 32 to 60%. Ladies, the guys you're attracted to literally are brain damaged. Now, the testosterone surge thickens bone density. So as the baby's cartilage begin to ossify, his bones are harder than hers. And at birth, bone mineral density testing shows almost 30% more dense bones. And this is true. Do you know what his most dense bone is? Watch your minds now. Skull. He's not just brain damaged, he's hard-headed. And it impacts striated muscle development. And so those of you who have carried both boys and girls in your womb know he moves more. Those muscles start twitching as soon as they develop, and they do not stop. Now, the estrogen surge in little girls is different. It actually prompts nerve cells to grow more connections between the left and right brain, and it also increases the number of processing fibers. So not only is a girl's corpus callosum larger than a boy's before birth and throughout life, but it also is much more efficient at communicating between the two sides of the brain. Now, the estrogen surge does affect one striated muscle. This is true. It's the perioral muscles. And so on prenatal ultrasounds, we can see in little girl babies that their lips are moving more. And they move all the time. And that effect does not stop at birth. That's it's just physiology and biology. So the corpus callosum, if you look in cross-cut views, it goes right across from the left to the right brain. If you look underneath the brain, you can see it's just a huge structure. And guys, it kind of looks like this. And girls, it's like this. It's really fast. But these estrogen and testosterone surges don't just affect the cerebrum, but they also affect the limbic system. So in the case of the hypothalamus, the testosterone surge dramatically increases the size of the hypothalamus, and it can be 30 to 40% bigger in males than females, and thus the sex drive in males tends to be much greater than in women. The amygdala and hippocampus, this part of the limbic system, these are, it's predominantly the emotional memory center of the brain. And it can be 2 to 3 times as large in females as compared to males because of the testosterone rush. So ladies, he is literally less able to remember emotional experiences than you are. He just has less capacity to remember things that have affected you guys relationally. And then the singular gyrus or singulated gyrus, they call it both, is sort of a Peyton Manning of, I had to throw that in, didn't I, Paul? The quarterback of the emotional processing system. And in women, not only is the singular gyrus much bigger than in men, but it's highly connected to a woman's verbal processing centers on both sides of the brain and her auditory processing centers. And so she is much more capable of processing emotions because of a larger singulated gyrus, but also better able to verbalize them because of connections to the verbal centers. So highly connected centers make her connection to words and feelings much more powerful than it is to men. And men with fewer connections are less likely to remember their emotional experiences. But our limbic system is far better connected to the spinothalamic tract, to the spinal cord, than it is in women. We're much better equipped to make decisions quickly. We're much better equipped to react physically more quickly. A good example of this was on September 11th when the first responders arrived in the World Trade Tower. The videotapes of that show that the female first responders tended to gather, at least those that were videotaped in the lobby, tended to gather together and talk about what their plan was. The guys ran up the stairs. Didn't talk. It was part of the natural way that we presented. Not that one is right and one is wrong. In fact, we would say the two work better together than they do apart. It's sort of two sides of a dovetail drawer that have a different function together than they do apart, and are stronger together than they would ever be apart. So in responding to emotional stimuli, men are less likely and able to express feelings verbally, more inclined to respond physically. The goals at Penn show that with functional MRI, women's brains light up more in areas and use more brain power pathways than men's brains when given a variety of tasks. When they are under functional MRI, whatever it is they're doing, their brains are like firecrackers. Give him a task, it's that's what he's doing. So because a woman's brain is so highly interconnected when compared to a man's more compartmentalized brain, women are naturally better able to multitask than guys are. So men have a relatively smaller corpus callosum made up of less white matter, processing matter. It's, one of the researchers said they would demonstrate a stronger connection on working with any one of these modes, in other words, in their compartments. And Barb's picked an illustration to show the male brain.
This is what I think of when I think of compartmentalized brain. That's Walt's brain. This is my brain. It's like spaghetti. It's on the plate and it's all over the place, and the noodles touch the sauce and the meat, and it all gets mixed in together.
This is my picture of a guy's brain. I think this was a little bit more accurate.
Yep. Yep, for sure. And this is my brain. It's on 24/7. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. This is another way I think of Walt's brain. He's got his drawer for his wife and his kids and his faith and his truck and possibly pretty big work drawer. And then he's got his sex drawer and his hobbies and his sports. You know, maybe several sports. This is his shopping drawer. And this is his nothing box. Yes, he's got a nothing box.
Preach it, baby.
I would say to Walt, what are you thinking about? And he said, nothing. And you know, this is like 38-year history of getting that answer. Nothing. I'm thinking, I'm hopeful that it's going to change one day. And it did the day that I realized this information. This was an aha moment for me. He really has a nothing box. He can go there. He can do nothing. He can think nothing. And so when I answer to the question, what are you thinking about, dear? And I say nothing. He knows that I just don't want to engage with him because I don't have a nothing box.
Actually, I know she's a lion dog when she's...
All these years I thought he was lying to me. And he really wasn't.
And thank the Lord for the girls at Penn, because they got into this argument, and they decided to do an experiment to determine it. So one morning they had a whole bunch of college guy volunteers come in for the morning, get their injections for their functional scans, and she put them into the functional MRI, and she told the guys, I guess it started with, he started in the morning, because he was doing the girls. So he put the girls in the machine, and he would tell them, don't think of anything. I just want you to think of nothing. Then we go into the control room and turn on the monitor and it'd be pew, 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 pew. Every single one of the women. In the afternoon, Raquel came in to do the guys, and so she puts the first guy in the machine, gives him the injection. She says, now I want you to think about nothing. And she goes in the control room and she tells the technician, she says, turn on the monitor, and he goes, it is. There's nothing. There was just nothing. I mean, we get into our boxes, and it takes us time to get from box to box. There was this lovely study done at the University of Michigan where they took a male and female college student volunteers. They met on a Saturday morning in a shopping center parking lot, and they gave the guys and the gals a shopping cart, and they said, it's unlimited. You can spend whatever you want, but your job is to go into the mall, find the gap, buy a pair of pants, and it doesn't even have to fit you. Just buy a pair of pants with the shopping cart and bring it back to the tent. And so this is what happened when they sent the girls in.
They enter, and of course they have to do more than window shop. And they meet somebody they know over here, and they detour a little bit. You know, a guy would go in and do this row, go in front of Macy's, go this row, or something like that. They wouldn't have as much fun as us, I'm sure. Anyway, he had to go into Macy's and do the rest of the mall, down to the Penny's Inn, and gab and talk, and who knows what else. And then hit the Sears, and then finally they made it to the Gap. 3 hours and 26 minutes later, and a cost of $876. Not bad for a morning shopping spree.
Guys are a little different.
Yeah.
We win, we bag the pants, we're out. Boom. 6 minutes, $33.
Oh, it's just a dream to live life like that, wouldn't it be?
So male brains contain about 6.5 times more gray matter, the thinking matter. Female brains about 9.5 times as much white matter, or processing matter. So not only do women have a relatively larger connection between the hemispheres through the corpus callosum, but it's composed almost entirely of white matter. And the girls say that the implication of women having more white matter connecting between the hemispheres of the brains is they would have better communication between the different modes of perceiving and relating to the world. So not only is a woman's brain designed to multitask, it virtually never turns off.
Yeah. What if you're on your computer? By the way, let me back up a little bit. This is by Shanti and Jeff Feldhahn. They wrote the For Men Only, the For Women Only books, and they came and they interviewed us because they were really fascinated in what we had learned. And Shanti commented, I know that men and women behave like this and this and this, but why? They never, ever knew the connection between the brain science and the chemical compounds up in the brain. And you can add to that.
It's good enough, baby.
All right. So pretend this is what it's like in my brain. You pretend you're on your computer, you're moving between 6 or 7 open screens, you're juggling 3 or 4 Word documents, an Excel spreadsheet or 2, and your home budgeting program, and it's like digital Grand Central Station. But then consider adding another dimension. Some of the open files and the programs are actually weeks old and have been running in the background the whole time, and then your computer is infected with those advertisements that pop up. You've tried to close those files and pop-ups many, many times. You've installed the anti-spyware programs and rebooted your computer, but it just keeps coming back. This is what my brain feels like most of the time.
So a few implications in marriage and in the workplace. When presenting an emotional topic, bad news, a hard diagnosis, difficult decisions diagnostically at home, learn the art of giving his brain time and our time alone to think about it, and giving her brain permission and time to talk about it. And so now in our practice, for example, if I'm going to be giving a difficult diagnosis to her, I want to have a little bit more time, either for her to be able to talk to me or to even better be able to talk to a female physician or a female staff member, only because they're designed to process verbally differently than we are. His brain may need some time, and he may have to come back in a day or a week or whatever it might be. We not only process differently, we perceive differently. Leonard Sachs is a psychologist and a family physician at Boston. And he says women can see colors and textures that men cannot see. This happens at birth. When rods and cones are counted at birth, she has about 30% more cones than he does. And to kind of test that hypothesis, just look at the average rainbow and count how many colors that you see. Well, what the studies show is that Galileo saw how many colors?
7.
7 in the rainbow. That's because they didn't ask Mrs. Galileo.
Wasn't it Newton?
Maybe it was Sir Isaac Newton
I think
for the rainbow.
so.
But they didn't ask the wife.
No, they certainly didn't ask her.
Because the average woman sees 11 to 13 colors in the same rainbow. Same thing with hearing. Women hear things men cannot hear. They smell things that men cannot smell. Brain imaging shows that men listen with only one side of their brain in a single auditory center. Women use both sides of the brain, and the average woman, not even the exceptional women like you women here, the average woman can process 7 separate auditory inputs at one time. So Barb can listen to me, she can hear Kate in her room, Scott in his room, the TV in the other room, the radio in the back room, what's going outside, and Jack the cat at the door. Not me. One thing, and that is it. We're driving to the airport, we're listening to Sarah Graves, and Barb goes, oh honey, I need to tell you something. I turned it off. And she said, you don't have to do that. And I said, yes I do. The way of honoring her is by, but if she didn't understand that turning that radio off.
It could be a source of irritation. Because I'm listening to the song and singing along and listening to him and...
Not me. So this relates to the anatomy of the brain. So for men and women in the workplace, recognize how her brain perceives colors, smells, and sounds. Wise is the physician who's setting up a workplace that asks for female help in how it looks and how it smells. Wise is the husband that asks for advice in how he is dressed.
Yes.
And how he smells in the morning.
I can't tell you how many times I've caught him going out the door and I've said, you're wearing those pants and that shirt. It's green. They're not even in the same color family. And he's like, what's wrong with it?
They fit.
It's green, it matches. I've caught him leaving the house with 2 different colors of shoes on. I don't get it. But it's because I just see that detail a little bit better than he does.
Remember when I was in that wedding?
Oh, gosh. Yes.
I don't know what's wrong with brown shoes and a tux. I mean,
Yeah.
they were nice dress shoes. So, for women at home in the workplace, appreciate the difficulties he has perceiving colors, smells, and sounds. Be gentle and wise how you share this information. It wasn't too long ago that I was downstairs doing something in Barb. I hear Barb coming down the stairs. This is not a good sound in our house. She comes into the room and she goes, come in. So, up the stairs, and we walk into her closet. And she goes, what do you smell? I go,
Nothing.
and she closes the door, and when my little sports closer there, she goes, put your nose there.
Oh, it was horrible. And he didn't even get a whiff of anything.
She got mad. I said, we wrote a book about this.
Yeah, I know. There's grace, and then there's grace.
We perceive differently in many ways. Even before girls can understand language as infants, they're better able than boys to identify the emotional content of speech and facial expressions, whether it's pictures of facial expressions or actual people's facial expressions. Girls are more sensitive to reading facial expressions, better at decoding nonverbal communication. Baby girls, for example, even in the nursery, and this is Cohen and the Cambridge Group's data, they prefer to gurgle at people, but boys are just as content to gurgle at toys or mobiles. Anything that makes loud sounds, they'll be attracted to. You don't believe that's true when you're walking outside across the street and a plane comes by or a motorcycle comes by? There he is. So 2 to 4-year-old girls in nurseries, at least in England, spend twice as long as boys in maintaining eye contact with an adult, whether the adult is silent or talking. Mothers know this intuitively. Studies show that when mothers talk to their little boys, they'll pull their chins over to them and go, look at me, when they talk to their little boys.
They don't do it like that.
How do they do it?
They very gently grab the face and say, now look into my eyes. Look into my eyes.
We're behind on our schedule a little bit.
Isn't that right, ladies?
It's just a natural thing. Baby girls observe and follow the eyes of an adult more often than baby boys, make more eye contact with boys. And now researchers are saying maybe this is this thing called intuition. That it's the ability to see 7 times as many facial expressions. It's the hearing ability to hear tones that he can't hear. Guys, you ever heard her say, don't use that tone with me? You go, what tone? I'm fine.
Boy, do we perceive differently. It is obvious to a woman when another woman is upset or feeling hurt, while a man generally has to physically witness tears or a temper tantrum or be slapped in the face before he even has a clue that anything is going on. That was by this husband and wife team, the Peases, and they wrote this fascinating book called Why Men Don't Listen and Women Can't Read Maps, How We're Different and What We Do About It. Fascinating reading. Arthur Bella says a woman's intuition is like a slow motion camera that rapidly captures immense amounts of data instantaneously and then delivers a conclusion that sweeps over us, hitting us like a ton of bricks. And then once again from Dr. Brenzendine, being a woman is like having giant invisible antennae that reach out into the world, constantly aware of the emotions and needs of those around you when he doesn't have a clue.
So in the workplace, at home, learn to appreciate the intuition of your female colleagues, female clients, your spouses, your patients. Boy, if I have a diagnosis and a female patient disagrees, it's not an infallible gift, but it's a heck of a gift. At home, men, learn to appreciate your wife's intuition. Women, be careful how you use your gift. It is not infallible, but it's pretty good. Perhaps the most dramatic example in our life was after we finished practice in Bryson City, we moved to Kissimmee, Florida, in the Orlando area, and it was the first time I actually got a paycheck, actually about what you're paying the babysitters. But it was a paycheck. We decided to begin biblical stewardship of money, so we budgeted and we decided to start putting away for the future. So we met with a Christian financial counselor, and he recommended a particular retirement plan. And when he recommended it, Barb looked at it and said,
I don't think it's a good idea.
He said, that's fine. Take it home, think about it, pray about it, let me know. So we're riding home, and I'm explaining it to Barb. I mean, we have dozens of friends that are in this investment and been in it for over 30 years and making really good returns. And so I said, I'll just explain it to her. So I explained it to her, and when I finished explaining it to her, she said,
I still don't think it's a good idea.
well, it's clear she didn't understand it. And so when we got home, I opened the prospectus to the color charts, because I said, this will be clear to anybody. And we went through the color charts, and she said,
I still don't think it's a good idea, but do what you think you need to do.
well, after praying about it, we made the investment. Well, maybe I made the investment. And we don't remember because it's so painful, but it was somewhere between 6 weeks and 6 months later, it went upside down, and it was a discovered Ponzi scheme that had been running for 3 decades, and we lost 1 year's salary in 1 minute. Why did I not listen? And I do now. I've never made a hiring decision. We've never made a job or move decision that we have not made together. This gift of intuition that we believe is divinely designed, guys, is a crucial and critical tool that God gives her, not you. Not infallible, but valuable. Different language. It's perfectly natural for women to want to talk about their feelings and emotions. It's perfectly natural for men to avoid extended conversations, particularly if it's emotionally focused, and now you understand why. Men, when hit with bad news or difficult decisions, can take up to 7 hours longer on average than women to process emotional stimuli, thoughts, and feelings. Most of the time, women need to talk. The limbic system's connections to the verbal centers of her brain are such that she needs to talk in order to process. Some researchers now say a woman cannot process without talking. Military prisoner studies show that women put in solitary confinement have 7 times the mortality compared to men. Cannot process without talking. And top it off, not only does he have difficulty expressing his feelings in words, but he takes much longer to process those feelings. This is how he processes. It's by himself when he's got a project or a problem. He either gets out or he gets away or he gets alone.
And let me just say this, while he is processing by himself, quietly, in that processing box, don't assume, ladies, that there is something wrong in your relationship. That it doesn't mean that at all. It just means he's processing.
We were hit with some really bad news. 7 missionaries that we knew were killed. And it just devastated us. I went down to my office. I just needed some time in my little man cave to process it. Barb went over to Penny's and processed with her best friend, our small group leader. If that had happened even 5 years ago, we wouldn't have understood it. Now we do, and now we appreciate it. Yet this need for a guy to process alone.
Most women find this incomprehensible and even frightening if they don't understand that this is how a male's brain is designed to work. It's almost the opposite of her brain. A woman's brain is never at rest, and when she is dealing with a problem, she not only wants to talk, she needs to talk. And there she is. And when it comes to talking, women are naturally good at it. They enjoy it. They do it a lot. In addition to the neural connections between a woman's emotional processing and memory, her centers are larger, far more active, and more strongly connected to the verbal centers of her brain than in men. She is designed to connect memories, words, and feelings, so her conversation tends to be laden with emotion and meaning, but not so with men. The biologic design of men causes them to be less likely to identify and communicate their emotions. Her conversation with another person allows her to reduce stress and talk through the problem. It's important for men to realize that when she does this, she's not necessarily looking for a solution in the same way that he is. She is processing.
Because our time's a little short, I'm going to skip forward, and there's a wonderful little illustration of this. This is another Wiley cartoon. What he heard was, honey, why don't you put your head in a vice, and I'll turn the handle until your skull explodes.
But what she actually said was, honey, why don't we turn off the TV and just talk?
So, by the way, this handout is available on the website for you, but we want to give you some of Barb's secrets for actually talking to Walt. She's made me a better conversationalist.
It took me a long time to figure this out, but once I did, I started implementing these little things, and they worked immensely. I got him to listen to me from, the 1 to 2 minutes to up to about 7 minutes now. I make an appointment with him. I give him, I just say, maybe at breakfast time, I will say, hey, tonight at dinner, can we talk about something? And then I give him an agenda sometimes. I don't do all of these things all the time, but I pick and choose. I might say, I want to talk to you about the car repair. And then I let him know there's a time limit. Hey, I need 10 minutes of your time.
I know it's not forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's not forever.
And I let him know whether I want a solution or I just need him to listen. It's real easy for him.
We're trying to fix it. Right? That's what we do all day in the office. We fix it, we fix it, we fix it. We come home, she says, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going, I'm ready to fix it. This is, women, let my people go. Let us know. Ready to fix it. All to listen.
I make sure he is only listening to me. I make sure there's no competition. No children, no pets, no TV, radio, DVD, CD, you name it. I only want him to listen to me. And then I try not to interrupt him when he's speaking because he sees that as competition. And he gets into that aggressive box mode. And then I do not expect him to be my girlfriend. If you expect your husband to be your girlfriend, you're always going to be disappointed because he's not built that way.
Can be a divorce causer. Now, my secret for talking with Barb, I don't have to fix it. And this may be one of the best examples, and we'll end with this.
It's just, there's all this pressure, And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless, and I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
No, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just... Sometimes it's like there's this achy I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Come on, if you would just...
Don't!
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can't go on? We can work it out. We can work it out.
So thanks to Jason Healy, I just need to listen. And Hallie was saying, listen to me, it's 9:30, we need to finish. So our hypothesis, his brain, her brain, divinely designed differences designed to draw us together, but can divide us and lead to divorce. And our hope is that you'll consider getting a copy of the book. We've got copies for each of you. We'll be happy to sign them for you. And that you'll just read a little bit together, like maybe a chapter, half a chapter tonight. Laugh and learn and love to enjoy those differences and become a couple that are salt and light to those around you. And if the information's helpful, maybe even consider leading a small group of couples in your church through the information. You'll have great fun, but most of all, you like us will say, we wish we had known this a long time ago. Thank you for your attention. We'll stop.